News came out that you guys signed Andy Dalton. What's kind of the idea for
We've
him?
agreed to terms. I don't think it's signed yet, but we've agreed to terms. Yes.
Is he backup competing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did that happen earlier in the week?
Well, we've been discussing it with him for a few days. Yes.
What are the things you guys like about him? I mean, obviously.
Well, he's experienced backup. I mean, excuse me, an experienced quarterback who's played a lot of games, started a lot of games in our league, and I think he'll be a help to Jameis. And in the event he has to play, we can win games with him.
How do you guys feel about wide receiver and just where things stand right now?
Yeah, I think we have some work to do yet. So we're looking.
Do you have any thoughts on the new overtime proposals?
Yeah, I like that we're going to have they announced what we did in there in the meeting yet?
I mean, it broke.
Yeah, we're going to.
News is out there.
Yeah, so
It's out
they
there.
changed the rule for postseason. I like that we're going to change it for the postseason and keep it the same in the regular season. That's what we were in favor of.
With Teron going, would the idea be to keep Remchek at right tackle or?
Yeah, look, I think all of that is to be determined, once we get into training camp. But because, look, we've got the draft in front of us, and there's still, some free agency period left, so that's still to be determined. But I feel good about our overall group of offensive linemen, so I know we do.
This is the first time we've had a chance to talk to you since everything went down. What was the team's interest in Deshaun Watson? And what was the thought that went into all the allegations against him when you were kind of considering that move?
Yeah, look, I think, we were in that mix, obviously. We talked with him, visited with him, and he chose to go with another team, and I think I'll just leave it at that.
But how do you weigh that kind of decision when it is a decision that could risk alienating part of your fan base? How do you weigh that versus give us a better chance to win?
You just collect all the information that you can, and you make your best decision, so.
So a lot of teams have said they did their homework on him. Well, was there, what did that entail? Was there something that the teams knew that the general public didn't know?
Yeah,
Was
I
it a process?
don't know that. Like I said, we had a lot of discussion about it. We had, a lot of different sources that we spoke with, and ultimately he's with Cleveland.
When that happens, was the dialogue ongoing with Jameis throughout that? Or did that kind of spur some action, obviously, I guess?
Yeah, listen, Jameis was unsigned at the time, and look, he's exploring his options, and oftentimes, the team has to, we have to explore our options at the same time until you have someone in the boat, so to speak. So I don't think it was anything unusual.
Did y'all, when you started pursuing Watson, do you specifically reach out to Jameis to talk to him about that, or those conversations kind of already been happening?
As I recall, we spoke to his agent, let his agent know that, we were going to explore that, and then afterwards, a number of us had conversations with Jameis.
When there's a position in the draft you guys feel is strong and deep, does that impact how you approach free agency and what you might be able to?
Yeah, I think it does to some degree. For example, at our place, when we look at, hey, the number of players that we look at in terms of, hey, these are, for example, how many first and second and third round guys, how many guys we have graded in the top 3 rounds at a particular position, and yeah, that can impact, how you approach free agency.
Are there more of those guys this year, just given the numbers from COVID and the size of the
That's
draft
a
class?
good question. I feel like it is, but I can't I haven't gone back and said, hey, we had, 55 last year and 85 this year. I haven't looked at that and said, but my sense of it is that there are more that we would have graded in the top 3 rounds, and it's simply a numbers game.
Were you guys in the ballpark for Marcus Williams? I know we signed elsewhere, but were you guys kind of in range there, or how did that process play out?
That's a good question. We had an offer to him last year, and I would say that look, we weren't going to be in the ballpark of where he ultimately ended up, and again, that's a numbers game and a salary cap issue for us. He's a really good player, and a really good person, great representative of the Saints, and, you know, we wish him the best, absolutely. And really wish we could have kept him. But, you know, when you're in the situation that we're in and a number of teams are in, you have to make choices.
Dennis alluded to it this morning, and you guys, the news broke about Andy Dalton, but a lot more of that kind of multi-purpose tight end role for Taysom this year.
Yeah, you know, again, I think you know, our coaching staff will determine all that as we get closer to training camp, and but yeah, Taysom is you know, he's obviously very versatile and a real weapon for us in our offense. So we'll see how that sorts out.
Was he
I'm sorry, go ahead.
disappointed, I guess, when he was?
Yeah,
told that?
I think you'll have to ask. Have to talk to Dennis about that.
You guys, any update on Alvin's situation?
No, I don't have any new information.
What's just your general overview of free agency and being aggressive in it? Is it something
Yeah.
you're for or against, or is it your?
Well, I think, look, we have different avenues to acquire players, right? We have the draft, we have, you know, trades, we have free agency, and I just have always felt like you have to take advantage of every, you know, of every avenue, and I think you have to be judicious and you have to be measured, but I don't think you rule out anything, you know. In some years, you know, we're going to have a target on someone and be real aggressive about that. Other years, we're going to sit back and you know, look for bargains. We've probably been in that mode a little more in recent years than we were in prior years. So I think it changes based upon the, you know, the circumstances surrounding your team.
Is there like a process that you feel like helps maybe avoid some of that buyer's remorse that seems to come with, you know, those big ticket players for?
Yeah, I don't think we ever have buyer's remorse. You know, sometimes it just doesn't work out like you expected, and certainly if you had to do it over again, you wouldn't. But you know, we go through the history of free agency. We go through all the signings every year, and we don't necessarily grade them, but we can see, you know, what was a good move and what wasn't, and what were the variables, and there are some things you can't control. You can't control injuries, for example, and but we look at it every year and then make our judgments according to, you know, the makeup of a roster and you know, what our must needs and wants are.
Do you feel like the second wave historically has been better for you guys? Than maybe
Well, I think sometimes it is. I wouldn't say that it's the same every year. You know, some years you go with a specific player in mind and you pay what it takes, and you know, those can be successful. And other years you know, you kind of sit back and let it come to you, and we've had some success in that area as well. So it just really depends upon the year, and I think the main thing is whenever you sign a player at a free agency, you have to have a vision for what that player is going to do for your team, and I think our coaches and our staff is really good at that.
You guys also look at signing Ramczyk and Lattimore and Mike and
Absolutely.
Alvin, all the big contracts as part
Yeah.
of this whole process.
Well, yeah, and look, that's a good problem to have. You want to draft players that ultimately you get to sign to second contracts, and look, you know, it's hard to fit everybody under a cap, and yet it's a good problem to have. But it can be a problem sometimes. You know, for example, Marcus Williams and Teron Armstead, we just, you know, couldn't afford to keep at the magnitude of the deals that were available to them.
You guys obviously haven't been in the quarterback market much in the last 20 years, but was this offseason particularly kind of crazy on that market, on that front, just with the movement and everything?
I think, you know, there's a lot of, it was a little bit crazy. We haven't been in that market very often, and so it was a little different in that there were some guys available via trade that I don't think that happens every year, and then obviously there were some free agents, and look, we loved what Jameis has done for us, and so we wanted to keep him as well, and yet he was a free agent, so there's a lot of uncertainty going into this offseason, but I'm happy where we landed.
Does the value of a draft pick stay pretty static, or does it change year to year based on the perceived
Yeah,
quality of the class?
I think it can change, and I think it changes based upon the quality of the class, but also I think, you know, the position of quarterback and the demand for that can significantly impact the value of a particular draft.
I don't think we've asked you about it yet, but Teron Armstead just, you know, guy been with the organization for a long time, and
Yeah, and hopefully I won't get emotional here because, man, Teron Armstead has been absolutely fantastic for us. He's a great leader. He's been a great player. Just everything you want. He's a player that, you know, if he can get out there, no matter how he's feeling injury-wise, he's going to play and play for his teammates in the organization. And, you know, I just can't say enough good things about him. And you know, it's disappointing that he's not going to be on our team. And yet it gets back to, you know, the choices that you have to make when you have, you know, a salary cap.
Did you guys feel like you were still in it with him in contract talks like, up until the end?
Yeah, I think, well, only from the sense of, look, I know he wanted to be with the Saints and we wanted him, and yet, you know, it was only going to be in the case of if the market for him wasn't what he expected. And I always felt like the market was going to be up there for him. He's such a good player and such a good person, and good for a team that somebody was going to recognize that and make him a really good offer. And so, again, just another player that we'll wish the best for the rest of his career, and then he'll be in the Saints Hall of Fame.
There was a report that he was waiting on Watson. Was there any truth to that, or was it just
I don't
purely-
know that. You'd have to ask him that.
Is it hard to make those decisions where maybe you might be maybe you feel like he still could be good, but it might be...
Yes, it's really hard to make those decisions for guys that have been, you know, contributors to your team and that you just, you know, think so highly of. It's really difficult. Yeah, it's difficult for our coaches. It's difficult for, you know, myself and our personnel staff. So we spend a lot of time, you know, considering, you know, what our options are and how it might fall.
are you, just out of curiosity, do you feel pretty good about where you guys are relative to cap right now, considering like last year
Yeah.
you had to make some tough moves because
Yeah,
of the situation?
Look, I wouldn't say that we're, you know, out of, you know, the situation that we're in, and yet, you know, we're managing it. I think it's going to be some time. It's going to be a process that takes, you know, a number of years here for us to kind of manage our way back to the median, if you will. So, but that was expected, you know. And really, I've said this to you guys before. The bump in the road was, you know, COVID and the drop in the cap, and that was just, you know, sent us for a little bit of a loop and put us behind the 8 ball. And yet, you know, we're trying to do it in a way where we can remain competitive because we have a good roster, we have a good team, and I think we can do some good things. And yet, it's a lot more difficult when, you know, your original plan is to kind of, you know, step back a little bit and take care of your cap issues. And yeah, you know, our team's good enough that we don't need to take a step back.
One more question pertaining to Watson that I meant
Yeah.
to ask earlier. When you were making a decision like that, what's that conversation like with Mrs. Benson?
Yeah.
Were there a lot of conversations with her
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
kind of sort out
Yeah,
the
we,
process?
you know, laid out the facts as we knew it, and laid out the circumstances, and you know what a plan might be, and yeah, she was involved.
Just so we're not putting words in your mouth, that last answer, is it your guys' goal to not be in that situation where you're kind of pushing money ahead and using void years and just kind of managing it more concisely?
Traditionally?
Yeah. Traditionally,
Yeah, ultimately, that's the goal. But I think this, when your team is in the position of, man, you've got this window of opportunity to, you know, win a championship and get in the playoffs and do some damage. You know, your tendency is put your chips in the table. We've seen a number of teams do that and have success. And so, yeah, that's the position we've been in for quite a while. And so we've kicked that can down the road. But at some point we have to pay it.